All right, well, this is gonna be a fun video. So a lot of people over the years on this channel have asked me about psychedelics for many reasons, mostly spiritual and spiritual journey reasons. Because if you've been a part of this channel or know me and my channel, then you know that I've been on this journey of leaving the Christian church, leaving religion as a pastor's kid, and how that's been difficult in a number of ways, and just finding what I believe and all that sort of stuff. And so obviously a question that I would get a lot is on psychedelics. What are my thoughts on psychedelics? Have I done psychedelics? And for the longest time, the answer was no. And now it's yes. And it's yes for a number of reasons. So for those of you who don't know, back in 2016 is when I left the church and started finding all this what do I believe kind of stuff. And then 2017, I got diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And there's more to it. Like in 2016, there was a nervous breakdown, and then all this, and that's what started the whole thing for me. This was my awakening moment, if you will. 6 months later, started experiencing all these crazy, weird symptoms, and then through a long process and journey, got diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. And in the past 5 years, let me tell you, I have tried everything from dieting. I'm still dieting, still doing the diet thing. Different forms of exercising. Bro, that bird's gonna piss me off. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I can. And I'm not a fan because I don't know if it's ADHD, some shit. Anyway, so in the last 5 years, tried everything. Dieting, I'm still dieting. Different forms of exercising, breathing techniques, meditation, yoga, different herbs, done the different medications, like antibiotics, massage therapy. I mean, everything under the sun, I feel like I have tried, and I've gotten little to nowhere, essentially. Little to nowhere in the last 5 years. So I had always heard of psychedelics. I'm on this Lyme disease support group on Facebook, which has been super helpful. And I had heard some things of psychedelics helping chronic illness, but I had never felt like I needed to try it. And I hadn't felt like I needed to try it for a few reasons. One being, it was a lot more spiritual. The reason why I didn't, which was I didn't want to have I didn't want to be in this place of searching for what I believe and have some sort of crazy experience while I was not sober-minded or on drugs or psychedelics or whatever, and then look back and be like, oh well, I can't trust that experience in any way because I was on drugs. It didn't happen naturally, and that's kind of what I've been looking for. So I was like, I'm not going to go there, spiritually speaking. And then there was the whole physical reason for chronic Lyme disease, but I didn't want to cross the paths for some reason. I don't know. Because obviously if I would take it, then there would be the spiritual implications, but also the physical. And I don't know, but I just didn't feel ready. Long story short, I didn't feel ready. And I can't explain it. And for those of you who have done psychedelics or experimented with psychedelics, I know you know what I'm talking about, where it's just kind of you have to feel ready to do it. And I just didn't feel ready. So obviously I came to a point where I felt ready. I was like, I don't know why, it just feels like it's time. And that's the whole story with that, of why I started. I just felt like it was time. I just reached a point where I was like, you know what? I think that this needs to happen now. But also, just knowing the benefits that I have heard of from a number of other people, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of the benefits of psychedelics. I was like, okay, it's definitely time to do this. Just because of where I was at this past December, January, I was just at a point where I was kind of like, I'll do anything. So I started microdosing. And I started microdosing. I have not still done a mega dose. The microdose that I took, 0.25 grams, which is some people will say that's kind of high for a microdose, and some people dude, that's really low for a microdose, because some people will microdose off of a gram. Obviously I didn't know any of this until I started doing more research. And the first microdose I took was 0.25 grams, and I actually went down probably to 0.15, because Lyme disease, chronic illness, I am so sensitive to everything that I put in my body. I'm talking about my doctor at one point gave me like a supplement. It was like a B vitamin supplement. And I didn't know how my body would react, so I took the B vitamin. I'm pretty sure it was a B vitamin supplement. And my body like freaked out just because I'm so hyper aware of everything that goes. I think it's probably PTSD from everything that I've experienced with chronic illness. It's just I freak out thinking that I'm going to have another panic attack and go to the hospital. It's just a whole thing. So I'm very sensitive, very aware of what goes into my body. And so I took it and I felt fantastic for the first couple hours. I went to bed and I woke up and started having episodes of derealization and depersonalization, which is what happened to me in 2016 when I had that nervous mental breakdown. Kind of completely lost sight of reality, and I've kind of had PTSD of like I don't want to go back into that point. But surprise, the psychedelics brought it out, which is what it's been doing for me. So had that derealization and then kind of got scared a little bit because I didn't want to feel that again. And then when I got to that second dose, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do as high of a dosage. So I took the 0.25 grams, which a friend of mine kind of weighed out for me, and I cut it in half. So I'm assuming that was 0.15, 0.18 grams or something like that, which is a very, very small dose. But I took it and I felt that derealization and depersonalization. You know what I'm talking about. I felt that again, and I knew this time I was like, okay, I gotta deal with this. I have to, because I'm not ever gonna be able to go to, megadose, whatever this is going to do for me. This obviously keeps coming up, and so I have to deal with it. And so took it and just kind of decided within myself. I came to this point where I was like, okay, this reality is real. I know that it's real. There might be other realities, and I have to respect that or accept that. But this reality is the reality that I'm in. And so I have to accept that I am in this reality, I'm grounded in this reality, and there could be others. But just because there could be other realities doesn't mean that this one isn't real. Once that kind of clicked in my brain, it got easier. And so I really had to face that. Now, what I figured out with this is also, I was like, okay, where do I feel safe? Because I started, along the same time, I started studying trauma release. And trauma release is something that will not take place. You actually can't heal emotionally or from any sort of trauma, PTSD, unless you feel safe. And so I thought to myself, like, where do I feel safe? Where do I feel at home? Where do I feel like this healing, this release can take place, and I won't keep coming up to this like blockade of like whether this reality is real or whatnot? Where do I feel safe? And I feel safe, and I felt safe going on walks in nature, breathing, having this open air, open space, not feeling trapped or confined. I had a couple of people tell me, just do it in your home where you feel safe, but I didn't feel safe in my home. So I had to start going on walks and just breathing and, take it, just not feeling trapped or confined in that space that I was in. So third time's a charm, basically. I took it the third time, and it was and the third time, by the way, I went back up to 0.25 grams. And the third time was, I felt, let me put it this way. I was laughing hysterically and crying almost uncontrollably at the same time for about an hour. And and where I lived at the time, it was with my parents. And when I was outside, they live kind of in a country, so it was like on a back road, and there's nobody really that goes on that road. But I was just walking up and down that road, and I would do this at night because I don't know why, I just feel safer at night, and I like to look at the stars. I sound like such a hippie with all of this, but it is what it is. So yeah, I was crying uncontrollably, I was laughing uncontrollably, and I just felt this unbelievable gratitude for the pain that I was experiencing at the time, because I became so aware of the lessons that it was going to bring, and I became so aware that there's a purpose in this, and I found myself saying, this is home, I am home, and I am at peace. And I had not felt that way maybe ever. If I'm honest with you, maybe ever. Like the amount of, there was no doubt, there was no confusion in me. I was like, I'm home and I am at peace, and I feel nothing but gratitude for everything that's happened, every place that I've been, everything that I've done, because they've all added up to something in my life, and there's this purpose there. And I just really sat in that. And it was just this huge emotional release that I really can't even describe to you. And it was, again, it was such a small dosage, but it worked for me. I don't know, that's just what worked for my body. And as all of this was going on, so there was just a series of unfortunate events that took place December, January, and I was at a really bad place mentally. And then I started through a series of events that I'm not going to get into now. I'll probably talk about it later, but it has much more to do with my subjective internal life emotionally. So that's not really the subject of this video, but I was going through a lot, and I was mentally just trashed. And then this rabbit hole took me down to where I was studying trauma release, like I had been talking about, and just wanting that release, knowing that I needed it. And a bunch of stuff when I was microdosing came up with family trauma, church trauma that had happened, trauma that I had in childhood and growing up, like things that I had forgotten, totally forgotten, that the memories started coming back. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been carrying this weight for years and years and years and years. And now it's all coming to light. And I can deal with all of it. And I'm able to deal with all of it. It's just, and it happened every single time that I microdosed. So started doing, psychedelics, psilocybin mushrooms. Started doing the psilocybin. Started doing started studying the trauma and emotional release and things of that nature, and kind of, why am I the way that I am? Just looking at my hurts and wounds and my whole life essentially, and was just experiencing so much healing, a very deep level of healing. Now I want to back up a little bit to what I was talking about in December, January. I was in a very dark place. I didn't realize how dark of a place that I was in until I realized how dark of a place until I talked to a clinical psychologist who told me how it was. And then my whole world kind of blew up and fell apart, and that's really when I started microdosing. I started microdosing a little bit before that, but then I started consistently microdosing weekly after that. But in December, January, it was a checkup for Lyme disease. So I went to my doctor, had blood work done, and part of the blood work that my doctor always checks for Lyme disease. So in Lyme disease patients, there's this blood test called a CD57, which is the natural killer cell count. And they're white blood cells that help the body naturally fight disease and infection and all that kind of stuff. So I get the CD57 blood test taken every quarterly, basically. And I took it, I went to the doctor in December, and things were not good, and got the test results in January, and the results were not good. I mean, it was kind of like I was back where I started. So just a little bit about CD57 blood test. It measures those killer cells, and the baseline, bare minimum requirement for the body is these numbers, and it's supposed to be between these numbers, is 60. And The highest is like, the body is operating at a place where it's good to go, far more than what, the base requirement. It gets up to 180, maybe even above that, like 3 something. When I first took the test in 2017, my numbers came back to 12. I was basically surviving. I wasn't living. And in January, I took it again, 5 years of trying to better myself. And in January, it was back down to 14. Started microdosing, started having this emotional release. And in April, I got the CD57 blood test again. And the number was higher than it has ever been. And it was finally, in 5 years, at the baseline of 60. I was blown away. That day, I got in my car, I just bawled, and it was like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I was a wreck. In the best way, I was a wreck. So I have these blood tests, and I have this proof that through psychedelics, through this emotional release, I have the blood work to show that my body has physiologically gotten better, has helped heal, and I feel better. I feel much better than I have in the past 5 years. And I think psychedelics, psilocybin, has been a massive contributor to that. So that's essentially it. I'm sure that I am going to share more as time goes on, but and I will keep you all updated because this is fairly new. So I'm going to keep you all updated on the blood tests, on the release and everything that's going on. But as of right now, I know that this is helping me and this is really benefiting me. So I'll talk about my healing process more as time goes on. But I just wanted to share this part of my journey and really wanted to bring encouragement to anybody that needed to hear it. And there's a lot more to unpack, but I will, in regards to my own healing journey, but I will unpack that as time goes on. Until next time, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.